Vice President of India, Jagdeep Dhankar, hailed the other day Prime Minister Modi as a Yoga Purush, man of this generation. He said, if Mahatma Gandhi was Mahapurush, greatest man of the last century, Narendra Modi is the man of this century. The Vice President Dhankar elaborated his pearls of wisdom to his audience, saying this. Mahatma Gandhi got us freedom from British rule using truth and nonviolence. Prime Minister Modi put India on the path of development, which was cherished for long. Some have found these words of the Vice President as a desperate act of psychophancy. A few have gone on to say that VP Dhankar is making every effort to show his unflinching loyalty to his supreme leader because he knows that psychophancy works. Repeated utterances of this kind, souring encomiums on the Prime Minister, landed him first a governor's job and then the position of the Vice President of India. A little more push, who knows, with a nod of the Yoga Purush, Mr. Dhankar may get it to reside in the dream palace, Rashtrapati Bhavan. So critics should understand the political and personal compulsion of our Vice President for fawning all over the Prime Minister. He is entitled to fulfill his ambition, even as in the process he exposes himself and his august office to an unedifying spectacle. Well, you shut up to a leader for personal ambition. That is maybe acceptable. But what is utterly unacceptable is that the Vice President of India, the occupier of the second highest constitutional position in this country, displays a lack of understanding about the provisions of our Constitution. Last Sunday, on the occasion of the Constitution Day, the Vice President underlined the significance of parliamentary supremacy under the Indian Constitution and warned against any incursion by the executive or the judiciary into the legislator's domain. Well, our Vice President is apparently naive. He can't see that the Parliament in India is a rubber stamp of the executive. When the special session of Parliament was convened in September this year, parliamentarians kept asking the executive about the agenda of the session. But the executive remained tight-lipped, and in a display of utter contempt for members of Parliament, it revealed the agenda only after the session commenced. Vice President Dhankar should know that the sovereignty of Parliament has long been usurped by the executive. He can, of course, take the plea that the Modi government didn't start this usurpation process. This process of undermining Parliament, this process of making Parliament a footmat of the executive of the day. Successive governments have succeeded in institutionalizing the stranglehold of the executive over the legislature. Modi government, with its overwhelming majority, is continuing the same with aplomb. It has ignored the standing committees of Parliament and pushed through the executive agenda by the whip. The whip is veritably a symbol of executive lordship over legislature. What is further saddening is that presiding officers like Mr. Dhankar have remained mute spectators. The loudmouths like him don't speak up, as that would affect their own job prospects. So the Vice President talking about parliamentary sovereignty is a big joke. What is more unfortunate is the Vice President's comments on judiciary. Mr. Dhankar again betrays his lack of understanding of our constitutional imperatives. Unlike the British Parliament, sovereignty does not lie with the Indian Parliament. Britain doesn't have a written constitution, so British Parliament legislates untrammeled by the provisions of a written constitution. Precedents and conventions are its only guide. But India, like the United States of America, is governed by a written constitution that provides a framework within which all three organs of the state, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, they must function within those parameters. So all these three organs are coordinates of the Indian state with designated powers and a system of checks and balances. None of the three is superior to the other. If anything, the Constitution is the supreme document. Parliament, executive, and judiciary draw their power and authority from the Constitution itself. So when Vice President Dhankar says that Parliament is alone the architect of the Constitution, to the exclusion of any other agency, executive or the judiciary, he is betraying an ignorance that even a reasonably good student of class 10 would not do. That shows the training of our distinguished Vice President as a lawyer and as someone who holds a high constitutional office is deeply flawed. It's time our Honorable Vice President goes through a process of re-education in constitutional imperatives in his own interest and in the interest of our proud nation.